Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the 14th of December 2015, the podcast that dons its gay apparel. This is your host, Shane Killian, and joining me again is Charles Thomas. Charles, welcome back to the show.
Hello, crazy people. How y'all doing this evening, or day, or whatever?
Let's trim and decorate the news of the bogus. So one of the calls for gun control in the news has been Barack Obama saying that it's insane that people on the no-fly list can buy a gun. Never mind the fact that neither of the San Bernardino shooters were actually on the no-fly list.
Well, don't let the facts get away for a good speech, right?
Oh, he never does. But the problem is, it's the no-fly list that's insane. So much that it's not clear if it's even a good list for determining who should be allowed to fly, much less extended to other restrictions on our liberties.
Yeah, as I remember, there's a couple stories of people who, I heard there was a little kid on 3 years old on no-fly list. I'm like, look, I know kids can be annoying and yelling on flights, but I don't think they're terrorists.
Well, that's one of the problems. It's like if you have the same name as someone else who's on the no-fly list, they just run your name and say, oh, you're on the no-fly. So if there's another Charles Thomas out there somewhere who's a suspected terrorist and they put him on the no-fly list, guess what? You can't fly either.
You still have these, for example, the underwear bomber still going on there.
Oh, yeah.
Things keep failing, and yet we'll stick with it. It's amazing. This failure of a system is still used, and yet people are like, well, it has to be good.
Yeah, I mean, you have people who've gotten on the list completely by mistake, people who've gotten on the list because they're related to someone else on the list, or just going to the wrong country in the wrong year. Oh, you visited that country? Well, we'll put you on the list. And making it worse is the fact that you're not entitled to know you're on the list. If you find out you're on the list, you don't have any way of knowing how you got on or any way of confronting the evidence that put you on it. And you don't really have any legal recourse. If you try to take it to court, the government just claims state secrets, and that's it.
Yeah, there's no way for you to fight this. And I sit here and I wonder why someone is supposedly knows the Constitution, like he was a constitutional lawyer, President Obama, and yet he seems to be so all in on this no-fly list or all these other things that are grossly unconstitutional. There's no chance of you to right this wrong. So you're going to be stuck in this no-fly list until the whims of the people saying, okay, we'll put you off, maybe, if we feel like it.
And the government can't even give us, the criteria for how people are put on the list so we can examine it and see, is there a clear scientific basis for this? There was a case where an Army veteran got put on the list just because he visited Yemen in 2009. Another one got on because the FBI checked the wrong box on a form by mistake. Another one got on in retaliation for refusing to become an FBI informant.
Yeah.
And it's just guilty until proven innocent. You can't fly, and now, according to Obama, you shouldn't be allowed to have a gun either.
It's just notes and a dartboard. That's it. Okay, let's see. Charles Thomas, he, fly list or no fly list? No fly list, put him on the list. There.
That's the thing. It's not even a secret court. It's a naughty and nice list.
Yeah, but I guarantee you, Sanders probably a lot more thorough. If it's not going to be performed competently, then why do we have it? But then again, the war on drugs cost us $1 trillion, and that's still here, so,
Yeah, but this is a whole bunch of political bluster and posturing, right? Well, Connecticut Governor Daniel Malloy is moving to do just that. Quote, we're taking common sense steps, gotta love it when they say common sense, in Connecticut to close the loophole and allow firearm permits to be denied to those on government watch lists.
Yeah, because common sense in government, they don't know what that word means,
I don't think anyone does. I think it's, here's something I believe. I don't have any good reason to believe it, so I'm just going to call it common sense. That's what I think of whenever I hear someone say common sense.
Oh, well, I see it. But there are some good common sense rules out there. But I don't think when government uses it, it twists it and perverts it to how is this going to benefit me and how is this going to benefit, my pocketbook.
But I do think that if you have a common sense rule or a common sense idea or something like that, if it really is good, you should be able to defend it rationally and not have to rely on just calling it common sense. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a completely useless term.
Instead of common sense ideas, how about good ideas? Okay, we want some good ideas about how we can stop these horrible attacks, which you're not going to stop every single one of these attacks. That's a folly. I'm just like, it just seems like people believe that, okay, the government screwed up. At least they have good intentions. More evidence shows that the people we have in power now are always the ones trying to hold us back.
So Malloy also tweeted, quote, "If you cannot fly due to being on a watch list, you shouldn't be able to purchase a firearm. Hashtag close the loophole."
But again, like you said earlier, they weren't on the no-fly list. Most of these mass shootings are people who have no record whatsoever. So what is their whole plan? Like, we stop felons having guns, okay? Felons don't have guns. These people are not felons.
But, that's the thing, California has the best gun control laws in the country, according to the Brady campaign. These people, background checks, no problem. Not on the no-fly list, nothing like that. And, of course, they repeatedly say, no, we're not talking about banning guns. We're just talking about common sense, that word again, common sense gun restrictions. But, look, this didn't work, so we need to have these extra restrictions, which, of course, it just gets worse because the problem is that law-abiding people aren't allowed to have guns. Again, these places where these happen, they keep being gun-free zones. So then it's just going to happen some more, and they say, we need some more, and then eventually you're at a gun ban. And they have to know that.
Yeah.
They have to know that.
It's really disturbing when you see most of, black leaders. We have to use this government power to take the racist NRA. Did they not know anything about history? The NRA was the first group that actually wanted African Americans to have guns and weapons to defend themselves.
And he also tweeted, quote, "Since Congress so far has failed to act, we will." And this is the problem with dismissing political rhetoric as just something politicians do to get attention, because sooner or later, someone's going to actually do it.
Yep. They don't know anything about history, and they have no idea the consequences of what they say.
Say, if you're tired of the promos in this podcast, well, the patrons got it early and with no ads or promos. Just go to patreon.bogosity.tv and donate at any level.
Hi, I'm Dave. You may recognize me from previous Bogosity episodes. However, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm also part of a podcast, the Superplex Brothers Podcast. Head on over to superplexbros.com. You can check out the podcast for video games and pro wrestling. We also have news, reviews, and editorials and all kinds of stuff just to talk about video games and pro wrestling and everything else that comes in between. So if you're into that, why don't you come check us out?
So let's think about this. Your country has the second worst terrorist attack since 9/11, the result of suicide bombers and mass shooters. And what do? Do you consider how to improve the security of your citizens? Do you rethink the foreign policy that led to the blowback? Not in France's case. Instead, you consider banning the Tor network and public Wi-Fi.
Yes, because doing that will surely protect them. It's not like, say, they have data plans or anything. Oh, wait, they do. So...
Yeah, and this is according to French newspaper Le Monde, where they got their hands on actual documents saying that the French government intends to pass these new laws. So Tor we've talked about, that's where you can use a special browser called the Tor browser, and then everything you do in that browser goes through layers of encryption as it bounces around the Tor network, and then you have an exit node that gets you to your actual website, or you can stay in the Tor network and talk back and forth in there, and everything's encrypted. And public Wi-Fi is something like the Wi-Fi you have at Starbucks and places like that. And apparently, they want to make sure that terrorists can't use any of these things, because if it's encrypted, they can't see it. And if it's a public Wi-Fi and there's, 200 people on it, and someone does something illegal, they don't know which one it is.
It's not going to work because, are they going to go and knock on every person's door and know what they're doing or not? Are they going to basically be like, Gestapo say you can't use this browser?
Like trying to block Tor traffic, which ought to work about as well as trying to block the Pirate Bay.
Yeah. Again, it's not going to do anything. It's the same tactic that when this happened in this country. You know what they did? They go right for the rights. They go right for the freedoms. Because that is the only way they believe to protect people, is to take away freedom. And I think a certain founding father said, those who desire security over freedom will have neither. I'm paraphrasing, but
those who would give up their essential liberty in order to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety.
Yeah, and this is what France president is just so. I mean, it's just like they're so like we have to do this. We have to do this way. We have to be. They feel like they have to do something, but the way they're doing it, it's not going to help heal. It's not going to do it. It's like it's the worst type of Band-Aid. You feel like you're doing something, but in the end, it's gonna fall off. And people are going to still use these same things. And if you ban these things, they'll find a way around it. It's just pointless things to make people feel better about themselves. And it's not going to really help. It's doing good without actually doing good,
If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. So we've been following the situation in Venezuela, where the socialists in power started heavily regulating the food industry, and of course the food shortages happened, so then the solution was to nationalize the food industry, which of course led to not really having much food at all, and we covered how it ended up in one Venezuelan governor basically saying, let them eat rocks.
Yep, and not only that, they actually can't even have toilet paper.
Venezuela's opposition party beat the socialists. In a landslide election, they actually managed to get a supermajority. This is actually updated from the story I linked to. The Democratic Unity Roundtable, which is a coalition of a bunch of different parties, won a total of 109 seats to the United Socialist Party's 55, with a total 74.2% voter participation rate, which is the highest since Venezuela ended compulsory voting.
Yeah, that's great. And people say, oh, socialism is great. We see this in Venezuela. You see what's going on there. Why no one talk about this in the main media? No one says anything. It's a silence.
It's never worked. It's never worked once, and yet people say, we need more socialism.
Yeah, but this type of big failure of socialism, maybe people will look back and say maybe Bernie Sanders is not the king or the great person savior and such. If you're a socialist, fine. If you're a communist, fine. But it's just like say, hey, these are real issues. And don't do the whole no true Scotsman fallacy saying, it's not my socialism. Why can't they just say, you know what? This is some real issues and we need to fix them.
So the coalition has a 2/3 supermajority, which will allow them to completely rewrite laws and even start a recall referendum to oust President Maduro before his term expires in 2019.
They need to do that because this country needs a real shakeup. That guy really damaged the country.
So, of course, Maduro said that his party lost because of the economic war waged by the country's business elite that was the, quote, parasitical bourgeoisie. You know, all the evil capitalists, it's all their fault. They're the reason why we have to eat fried rocks and do all of this stuff.
No responsibility. There is no saying, maybe we haven't done a good job. No one did a good job here. Instead of that, they say, hey, it's not my fault. It's the capitalism. Even though it looks like socialism is the main cause here, not capitalism.
And sadly, it's no guarantee. There's still time for the outgoing party to do things like grant Maduro special emergency powers, giving him the power to rule by decree. And they could have that overturned by challenging it in the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court are majority Maduro supporters.
Oh, joy.
Now you can make Amazon purchases with Bitcoin by going to purse.bogosity.tv. That's P-U-R-S-E. Moreover, most purchases can be made at a discount. Save an average of 20% just by buying from Purse, or get even greater discounts by linking your Amazon wish list. Go to purse.bogosity.tv. Bogosity.tv is a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for sites to earn advertising fees by advertising and linking to Amazon.com. Just clear your cookies and go to amazon.bogosity.tv, or check the right-hand side of the podcast page for Amazon's best deals, including the deal of the day and limited-time lightning deals on all sorts of great products. So next time you buy online, go to amazon.bogosity.tv. And now let's polymerize this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And this week it goes to Robert Reich, and I think we've covered his insanity a few times before. I was going to give it to him for his bogus pro-minimum wage statements, but really it's stuff we've all covered before. There's nothing new there. And I found something he wrote on his blog that was even worse. He called it, What to Do About Disloyal Corporations. And what is a disloyal corporation, I hear you ask? Well, you know how statists always justify taxation by saying it isn't forced because if you don't want to pay them, you can just leave. Well, a disloyal corporation is one that leaves the United States to avoid paying taxes.
And I love the fact that people say, oh, we need more taxes. But when you see majority of the taxes don't go to the places that you would usually go. They usually go to corporate bailouts. It usually goes to all these other places that you might not want. I mean, most of the stuff I feel I pay my taxes on is like for the military or bailouts. I feel like, hey, I don't want any of my money going to those things, but nope, I can't say no to that.
And Reich, of course, has been one of the biggest voices for increasing taxes on the rich and corporations, and he's acted all chagrined that they've started leaving the country. Quote, just like that, Pfizer has decided it's no longer American. It plans to link up with Ireland's Allergan and move its corporate headquarters from New York to Ireland. That way it will pay less tax. Ireland's tax rate is less than half that of the United States. Ian Reid, Pfizer's chief executive, told the Wall Street Journal the higher tax rate in the United States caused Pfizer to compete, quote, with one hand tied behind our back.
Yeah.
Reid said he'd tried to lobby Congress to reduce the corporate tax rate, now 35%, highest in the world, by the way, but failed, so Pfizer is leaving.
Mm-hmm. I always say it's not how much money we get from taxes, it's about how we spend it. Instead of all, like, saying these boondoggles or the waste of the war on drugs with $1 trillion, these billions of dollars we lose in these war on terror, I mean, I'm still not over. I mean, most people seem forgotten that when we were still in Iraq, well, then it was still in Iraq, is that we lost, remember that story like a couple years ago where they actually lost $6 billion? Then you have Afghanistan, you have all this money wasted on these buildings and gas stations.
But it's not enough. We cut to the bone. We have to raise the debt ceiling because there's just no other place we can cut.
Again, it's never, no one's going to make that big call, that big sacrifice. We are the ones who have to tighten our belts. Congress and all those guys, they never do. They never do. The ruling elite, when I keep saying this, they're not representatives. They are the lords and ladies. And the worst thing about it is people want to give them even more power. Like, well, they're incompetent. So what we're going to do? We're going to give them more money and more power. That's the way we're going to get our things done. Wait.
So he said, quote, such corporate desertions from the United States, technically called tax inversions, will cost the rest of us taxpayers some $19.5 billion over the next decade. So it's not their money, it's the government's money, and they're taking it from us.
I understand, again, I'm the lone person here who I think that there should be some type of government, but the majority of that money should be going for simple projects like roads. But if you look where all the money goes, it goes into like these boondoggles, these wars that go forever. They go into these programs that in the end do not help. They injure this country's wealth, and there's no real positive stuff. And all the positive stuff that does get, like, how about this positive thing that does? It gets barely even enough funding to even survive. Well, maybe if you start saying, hey, maybe we should start cutting real cuts, then I think we'll actually have a lot more money spread around for these businesses and such. But that's just my personal thing.
So he talks about people who want to, quote, eliminate the corporate income tax altogether. Why this would save the Treasury more money than further corporate tax inversions is unclear. And, I mean, it's not really about that. I've covered this before. If you want to tax the profits that people are reaping from these corporations, then you want the capital gains tax. The only other places the corporate tax money can come from is either it'll result in higher prices, it'll result in fewer jobs or less pay for workers, or more likely it's going to come out of reinvestment, which means that businesses aren't expanding, they're not creating new jobs, and they're not making things even cheaper for the rest of us. So how is that anything good?
Yeah, and more often than not, these huge like business regulations and all this stuff, probably the main supporter are these big businesses. They don't want any type of competition. It's just, it's too hard. We can't really compete. And once you have these other countries, which are like, hey, we're not going to charge you this much money, they're moving. And less businesses will have, they'll have no jobs and everything else. And then you go like, oh, guys, we need more money. So you're going to have to keep raising taxes and more businesses are going to leave. And next, we're going to be like Venezuela. We're all going to be eating rocks.
Yeah. Yeah, and he keeps going on about Pfizer's patents. And notice that nowhere in this screed is a proposal to actually fix the patent system or increase the ability of the free market to act in the medical industry or anything like that. Nope. It's just because Pfizer's going away, that means that they're stealing money from the poor government, which can just print as much as it needs to anyway. And he says, quote, by deserting America, Pfizer relinquishes its right to influence American politics, even though all of the same patent protections and everything else apply to foreign corporations too. So basically he's saying that if you start off in America and then leave, you deserve less rights than if you never were in America to begin with. It's about punishment, nothing more.
It's petty. That's what it is. It's petty and selfish. And the most sad part is people really believe that the government is money. Majority is money. Oh, it's coming to the government. That means it's coming to me. It's not. It's going to go to, the lobbyists, Wall Streets, You're not going to see most of that money. If you do see that money, it's going to be a little, like a scrape or two. Maybe a little breadcrumb. It's not coming to us, man. This never does.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing I'd expect from Donald Trump.
And yeah, here's the crazy thing. Donald Trump's plan is actually to reduce the corporate tax rate to 15%, actually. He says, by copying Ted Cruz wants to eliminate the corporate tax altogether, which personally, maybe we should reduce it to maybe...
but like I said, we don't need it. We don't need it. It's the only thing it's going to do is cause harm. If you want to tax the rich more, then do the capital gains tax. All the corporate income tax is going to do is just take money out of your pocket and mine in the forms of lower pay, higher prices, fewer jobs, stuff like that.
And you think that maybe if we have all this money, the government makes all this money, why is this poverty is still really high in this country, mostly in African American? I mean, why are we still in this recession? Why, if they're making all this money, why are we still in this huge recession right now? Because
government doesn't make money. It just takes it from other people.
I sometimes feel like it's just one big Ponzi scheme, and we are probably the biggest jokes. And that's probably, again, why there are no aliens that come out looking at us. We're probably looking at us like a big reality show saying, like, probably laughing at us right now. Just like saying, you give money to an organization that takes away your rights, abuses its citizens, most of your infrastructure and such, and yet you defend this organization, you still give it your patronage, you still do all these things while it continues to hurt you. And you say you're the most smartest and dominant species on your planet?
Yeah, I mean, this is just one more fetid, putrid example of how, if you don't like paying taxes, you could just leave. It's just another pathetic excuse by people who have no rational basis whatsoever for their opinions.
Yeah, look at our history. Our history is shown like people like from Martin Luther King to Harriet Tubman to all these people who rose up against the government and such. They were fighting against the laws. They were fighting against authority. That was our country's, we rise against authority. We should not be placating to it. I feel like that's a bit lost. And we ostracize people who actually rise against the authority. It just seems odd to me. Am I crazy saying? Because we reverence people who, we reverence people who stick it to authority. But at the end of the day, the majority of people in this country, we side more with the authority, and we abuse the people who actually seem to be sticking up to it.
So all of that makes Robert Reich this week's biggest Bogon emitter. Hackers, terrorists, the NSA. But I repeat myself. Your online security is under attack, and the weakest point is your password. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass plugs into your browser and allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords anywhere on the web, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers and all your computers, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, membership info, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications and even mobile devices, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. And now let's pasteurize this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire!
And this week it goes to Vandana Shiva, Ronnie Cummins, and several other anti-GMO nutwads for their attempt to put Monsanto on trial for crimes against humanity. And if you read the headlines, it really does seem like it's a trial. The ecologist is saying, they're going to put it on trial. They're going to have this tribunal. And it's being done by these guys because, of course, Monsanto is
evil.
That's what I think about whenever I hear some peddler of pseudoscience use that word. I think of Mermaid Man from SpongeBob going,
evil. It's evil. But you know what? I understand this whole thing, GMOs. I see what their rationale is. And they're like, how can you see the rationale? I'm like, it's a scary thing because you don't know what messing with live food or what type of effect what's going to do with the children's bodies. I get that thing. I get what their mindset is. You don't know what they're doing. But we've already been doing GMOs. We've crossbred food, cows and chickens and everything else before this type of technology.
Or even worse, because they're focusing a lot on crops. Most of our crops come from hybridization, which is basically take the genes, just kind of throw them together at random, pull out a bunch of them, and hope you get good ones. I mean, that's what hybridization is. And genetic modification is much more precise than that. How can it be anything but better?
And I feel like it's just slapping the face of someone like, say, Norman Borlaug.
Oh, yeah.
A person who saved 1 billion lives. 1 billion lives because of his way of feeding people who have no chance of actually getting any type of food. We take advantage of that. This person right here saw this and said we could use the technology. He helped people, production in Africa, all these places that needed help, and they did. In fact, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. This person saved, like I said, 1 billion people, and yet these people who are just like, we're putting Monsanto on trial. These people want to take that back. They want to take people. They want to kill those billions of people. They want to kill these people and let them starve and let them die out. It really touched my nerve that we have more poor people getting led by these pseudo-white saviors who just have no idea what's science, no idea what's going on.
And they're doing everything they can to present this to the public as a legitimate trial, saying it's under the guiding principles on business and human rights adopted at the UN in 2011 and the Rome Statute, they mean the Rome Statute, that created the International Criminal Court. But it's not a tribunal under the United Nations or the International Criminal Court. It's something that they're just doing, and they're doing this to try to make it seem authentic, but in fact, they're all of these people who are part of anti-GMO and pro-organic special interests.
Okay, yeah, that, because that seems really, really ethical right there.
So I mentioned Vandana Shiva. She's been a big name in the biotech movement. She gets like $40,000 whenever she gives a talk on this stuff. And she's mostly known for the false claim that Indian farmers are committing suicide because of Monsanto and all of that. You also have Gilles-Éric Seralini, who's the French scientist that we covered. They did that experiment with the lab rats, and they said, oh, we fed them GMO food, and they grew all these tumors, and photos of rats with hideous tumors, when, as we talked about at the time, they used breeds that were especially prone to tumors so that you can research anti-tumor medicines, and they just let the tumors grow and grow far longer. The ethics guidelines say you should humanely euthanize the rats. They just let them grow for another year or two until they had these hideous growths. And the original journal retracted the article, and so this is the guy behind all of that. And still no link between GMOs and cancer.
Yeah, it's about feelings. No facts, just feelings.
And you also have André Leu, president of IFOAM, which is the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements, who said about the tribunal and their objectives, quote, what is very important for us and why we've chosen Monsanto, because Monsanto is actually the poster boy for doing so much
evil
on the planet.
Yes, of course they do all this evil, because this whole evil thing is going to destroy us all. But you know what? This whole GMO BS, oh my God, Frankenfoods, Frankenfish. They just pull their ears and be like, la 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 la, la la la, Frankenfoods, and they hear what they want to hear. They don't care about actual facts.
So Lou, of course, goes on and on about Monsanto's product Roundup, which is glyphosate, saying, quote, we now have hundreds of published peer-reviewed studies showing that this is actually probably the most dangerous agrochemical ever invented. Well, yeah, dangerous to weeds maybe, but it works on a specific metabolic pathway that we don't have that causes the weeds to produce amino acids that they need for vital proteins, and so that's the mechanism that kills them. It's not like poison. No, it targets that specific metabolic pathway. And Lou said that there was, quote, no safe level of glyphosate when, how many times do we have to say it, the dose makes the poison. Glyphosate is 25 times less toxic than caffeine, hasn't been implicated in even a single case of cancer anywhere, and is known to be safe in levels far higher than the exposure you get from food where it's been used.
Oh, facts, man. You keep saying these facts. They don't want to hear about facts, Shane. They want to hear about feelings. But I feel it causes cancer. It feels about cancer, That's what's important. Feelings, man.
So you also have Vandana Shiva going on and on about how this is slavery.
Yes, so evil.
Yep. Quote, slavery didn't end because the slave owners decided they should give up slaves. I see what Monsanto has done as not just the slavery that we got rid of, but trying to expand slavery to all life on Earth.
Wow. Oh gosh.
By the way, if you want to know what that sounds from, look up Interview with a Zombie. That's what that's from.
Oh gosh.
The zombie doing that.
Oh gosh. It's slavery didn't end. Oh gosh, slavery. All these type of cultures, slavery happened. It is a horrible and terrible thing. We could all agree with this, right? Slavery is a horrible thing. It is a terrible and horrible sin that is plagued us, the black stain upon our cultures. There's slavery in every other place out there. In fact, there's slavery to this very day in 2015, going to 2016. It's horrifying. It's completely and utterly disturbing disservice to people who have fought against and who have died because of that horrible thing. That, to me, is just the true insensitive things. And what these people who saying that, wow, to say that Monsanto is equivalent to slavery or a slave driver, and you want to compare Monsanto to that? Fuck you!
Wow, I think that's the first time I've heard you say that.
Oh, man.
Dave, I expected from, but wow, it takes a lot for you.
I'm trying, man. It's hard sometimes now. I'm trying to hold back. But, it's just stuff like this really just shows me that there are some people who are so ignorant, who are so backwatery, just so into their own BS. They're so back there that, so up their own rear ends that they don't understand what's going on in the real world. And by the time they do, the real evil they see, they ignore it, or they just try to excuse it.
So all of that makes these guys this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
Well, that wraps up this edition of the Bogosity podcast. As always, you can come to forum.bogosity.tv to read the show notes and join the discussion. This podcast depends on you to keep going, so please donate using the links on the website or at patreon.bogosity.tv, and feel free to join in by sending a question, statement, news article, or rant to podcast@bogosity.tv. You can even stick it in an audio file if you want. Thank you for listening, and thanks again to Charles Thomas for joining me.
Thanks, Shane. Now, excuse me, I'm going to take a long shower and eat some Monsanto food just to piss those guys off.
This is our last regular podcast of the year. We hope you all have a happy holiday season, and we'll be back at the start of next year for our 2015 year in review and name our Idiot of the Year. Until then, here's a quote from Lois Lowry. "Submitting to censorship is to enter the seductive world of the giver, the world where there are no bad words and no bad deeds. But it is also the world where choice has been taken away and reality distorted. And that is the most dangerous world of all." The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 3.01 ported license.
Bogosity.
Christmas time is coming, and the most classic of Christmas stories is A Christmas Carol. But how much do you know about the original Charles Dickens novella? Have you dismissed it as a children's book with one-dimensional characters amounting to nothing but platitudes and cliches? Maybe your appreciation of the book was even muted by those dry, boring, annotated books they made you read in school. My book, the sarcastically annotated A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, uses both facts and humor to present the book in a way you probably haven't seen it before. Giving praise when deserved and beratement when warranted, this book is put in the perspective of its time and shows a dimensional, multi-layered Ebenezer Scrooge from start to finish. Skepticism, history, and even economics are employed to show the book in relation to today in an easily accessible format. Appreciate the Christmas of your youth all over again. Get the sarcastically annotated A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, available at Amazon and on PDF as well.
It's stuff like this that makes me realize that, even people inside the seedy underbelly of pro wrestling have a lot more morals and actually a lot more of a good moral high ground than these people who are social justice warriors. Thank you, Shane, for making me realize that.
Okay.